Good evening once again. Tuesday's Thoughts, Tuesday the 21st of November. Trust everyone is well. Just waiting for my sound engineer to just get on board and just let me know that everything's okay. And we'll be good to go. We're looking at part 2 of the subject matter we started looking at last week. Just to say, if you're watching either a few days after the event or midweek or weeks after or even months after, welcome. And thank you very much indeed. We're about 25-30 minutes. Hopefully that you'll find something from it. Can't stop you from scrolling, of course, but thank you very much indeed. Also, I'll just wait for a few more people to kind of log on, just make sure. So let's see. Okay, right. My name is Delroy Hall, and I'm a trained psychotherapist, teacher, and lecturer. And I've been doing this now for, April coming to 4 years. So about 3 years and a bit. And the time has gone really, really quick. Good evening, Sonia. I don't know where my sound engineer is, but you've got it there. So for me, good to go. So also, I wanted to say a quick shout out. I shan't mention any names, but I met 3 people on at the weekend in Leeds who say they watch, maybe not every week, but they watch regularly. So I just want to say a great hello to the 3 of you. No names mentioned, so your anonymity will remain. But yeah, so we were looking at how to move on after being in a difficult relationship, and there are many. It happens often, quite often that we're willing to admit or to realise. I remember mentioning it to somebody today, and they said, "Oh gosh, that'd be interesting," because so many people have been in very difficult relationships, and moving on can be really, really difficult. And I think sometimes it's not something that many of us want to face up to. And certainly if we're in one, maybe we don't want to face up to it because it's too painful to be looking at. So I'm just going to recap from last week. We looked at some of the things that we need to do to move on. One was to cut off connections from your ex, end the chapter, no social media trolling, acknowledge the loss. That's really important. Get rid of everything they've given you, gifts and stuff. You really need to be able to kind of move on. Get rid of the stuff they're giving you, the gifts, either as you kind of hand them back, or you donate them or pawn them. And my friend I mentioned last week that when we were at school together, when he would shower a girl with lots of presents, but once he finished with her, if the relation ended, he'd ask for all these presents back. That was deadly. I hope he's not listening to this, because I remember it well. So we're talking about 50 years ago now. I've never ever forgotten it. So it just feels as though it's a little bit blurred at the minute. So if you see it's a bit blurred, just let me know. But the picture seems a tad blurred. Okay. Also, end of relationship. If it's a difficult one, shed tears. Male or female, crying is really helpful. Get closure as best you can. Mourn the loss. It's really important. And I then started to look at this whole thing around anger and guilt. So if a relationship, you want to move on from a difficult relationship and you feel anger and guilt, what is it all about? Well, this is interesting, really interesting. Anger, because it could be how you allow the person to treat you. You never nipped it in the bud. So they've ended the relationship, or you've ended it, and you realize that they treated you really badly, but you said nothing. So you can feel really angry about that because you allow them to treat you badly. But also you can feel guilty because you realize then in the relationship you didn't treat the person properly. So there can be these mixed emotions. You're with the person and the relationship's ended, but you'll feel guilty because you didn't treat them properly. You weren't right. You weren't right with them. And also you can feel angry because you allowed the person to treat you badly and you said nothing about it. You allowed it to continue. And then when it got too much, when there's an explosion, maybe you should have done it a few months earlier. Things might, either the relationship would have ended, which is fine, but what you did, you allow it to continue, and then this is the kind of situation that you're in. So, and sometimes what happens with lots of people, they're really scared about being honest in the relationship because they're fearful of losing the person. But believe you me, being honest at the beginning of a relationship is far better than trying to deal with things 5 years in, 6 years in, 10 years in. If you're honest at the beginning, and I remember talking to somebody recently who I asked them how they're getting on with the relationship. They said, we're finished. I said, how long have we been together? He said, a year. And the person said to me, we realized we wanted different things. Good time to end the relationship. There's no compromise. want different things, and never the twain shall meet. So it is good, I said to the person, it is good that the relationship's ended now, as opposed to being in a kind of long-term committed relationship, and then you realize you haven't got anything in common or so forth. Good evening. Thank you, sound engineer. Really great. Thank you very much indeed for your help this evening. So anyone that's listening, those of you I met at Leeds at the weekend who watch occasionally, thank you very much indeed. Whether or not you're on YouTube, good evening, Jenny, and YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter, welcome this evening. We're still looking at this, how to move on from being in a difficult relationship. Good evening, Pepper. Really good to see you this evening. And the reason why I did this section was somebody contacted me and asked me if I was doing something very, in terms of if I had something in a pipeline, looking at moving on from a difficult relationship. And it was it worked out really well in terms of kind of doing this now. Next week I'll be looking at something else. We'll be finishing this evening. But look, whatever I say, for those of you just watching, whatever I do in these programs, these broadcasts, it's no substitute to go to see a psychologist, psychotherapist, counselor, your GP if it's medical, to get the treatment that's needed. These are just hints and tips to get you through until you can manage yourself effectively, so then you can move on and do what you need to do. So some of the stuff we looked at last week, as I said, we recapped, and this whole thing around anger and guilt. Also, the other thing is about when we're in a difficult relationship, one of the things that we do, especially men, but one of the things that we do and we should not do, you've heard me say this time and time again, we must listen to our feelings. Our feelings are saying something. Remember the great words of Susan David, the great psychologist, emotions are data. They're not directive. They're letting you know something needs attention. So our feelings, we need to listen to our feelings because they're saying something to us. So this is crucial. If you're feeling guilty or angry, it is important you understand why in a relationship. So one of the things we need to do is to process the emotion. Emotions are data, yes. Emotions are information. It's saying something. Not that we spend our whole lives kind of having to dwell on it and all the rest of it, but it's saying something that we need to kind of be aware of. So how do we process emotions? Now, what I'm going to say here is going to take me a few seconds to go through, but actually it can take quite a long time to go through in terms of really getting to grips with these unpleasant things. Great emotions are fine, when we're happy, we're joyous and all the rest of it, but those unpleasant emotions are really saying something, and we need to give it some attention. So to process our emotions, number one, identify that they exist, be honest that they exist. It's really important. And number two is to sit down with it and don't dismiss it. Get comfortable with it, even though it's uncomfortable. This is what I'm feeling, and stay with it. Don't sweep it under the carpet. Don't brush it under the carpet. Don't kick it into the long grass. This is what I feel. Acknowledge it, identify what you're feeling. And it could be, there's a whole list of things you're feeling. Could be anger, sadness, rage, feeling humiliated. List them. Really important to list them, own them, acknowledge the emotions that you're feeling, and sit with it and get comfortable with it. Number three, try to find why you are experiencing it in this way. What's going on for you, why you feel this way. Stay with it. Pen and paper for me is just a number one thing. Sometimes for some people, they don't write very well, but they can talk to somebody. The other way, of course, is if you want to, is to talk into a recording device. So you're on your own and you're wanting to process your emotions. Most phones have this kind of inbuilt recorder. So you then use your phone to record it. And then what you can do, then you can listen to it. Because sometimes in the listening back of things, we hear things which at the time of saying we don't hear. But when we listen back to it, we think, gosh, did I say that? Well, yes, you did, because it's there. But at the in the moment, you perhaps weren't fully conscious of what you're saying, but listening again, it resonates with you and it leaves a clue to what you need to do. And number four is to address the emotion in a healthy way. One of the ways that I've been able to address unpleasant emotions over the years is what they call paper dialogue. So in a sense, you enter into a conversation with the emotion. You literally write it. So if you looked at the paper dialogue, it's me and you. So me is meaning me, and then you, the other person or the situation or the emotion. So you enter into a dialogue. To start off, it starts off kind of false and weird, but at some point, in a sense, you kind of get into the flow, and it's almost as though the emotion is talking back to you. That's really important. Let me just show you. That's a great insight. I'm a writer, but I've never thought about having options to share with friends who may struggle with that. Right? Yep. Using voice notes, great idea. Yep, it really is. I recall I may have mentioned it a few weeks ago. Somebody was doing a lecture at Leeds Beckett quite a few years ago now, and I can't remember what the subject matter was. Perhaps if I looked on hard drive, I might find it. But one of the students said, Daryl, can I ask you a question? So I said, yeah. And she said, when I get drunk, she said, I just don't recognize who I am. I just don't recognize who I am. So I spoke about this paper dialogue, and I left it at that. And I said to the director of studies, I said, look, really good to get some feedback, how the lecture went and so forth. So she said, yeah. And then 2 weeks later, she phoned me. She said, Delroy, you wanted feedback? Yeah. Well, do you remember so-and-so asked that question about so-and-so, so-and-so? Well, yeah. She came back to uni, and I didn't recognize her. So she got into a conversation with a student. What happened? So she said, after we had that lecture with Delroy spoke about paper dialogue, I didn't do that, but what I did, I went to the pub with some friends and we spoke about stuff. And what she did, the reason for the kind of being obliterated with alcohol, she was in a relationship she didn't like, difficult background. So she ended the relationship, and in fact what she did, ended the relationship, changed herself, new hairstyle, but then what she did, she stopped the course because she realized it wasn't what she wanted to do. Took some time out of university, came back 2 years later, I think, to do something else. Now, what's happened to her, I don't know, but it was just doing this process of this kind of conversation of why this is happening was really important for her, and great insight as well. So yeah, Claire, if you found it helpful, please do. So listen to your feelings, but also learn from the experience. I'll be saying a bit more about this in a minute, but every experience, whether good or bad, offers moments of learning. You've heard me talk about, sometimes we have this thing about things go wrong, we made mistakes, and it's gone south and gone pants. We use all those words, but actually every experience we have, we can learn from. It takes a bit of time to step back, ask some certain questions, what's going on, and take some time to process it. So here are some of the questions. So it's about learning. It's about growth. It's not about self-blame or pity or beating yourself up. Some of us are really, really good at that when things go wrong, inverted commas. But if we're able to step back and learn from it, we find it really, really, really helpful. So these are some of the questions that we can ask ourselves. Again, you can listen to this on playback. What mistakes did I make? Again, this is not about blaming. It's a mature look at what you've done in a relationship that's caused it to falter. What mistakes did I make? What can I learn from what has happened? These are really important questions. How do I need to grow? Searching questions, probing questions, and it's about answering yourself honestly, answering the questions and yourself honestly. You don't have to share it with anybody, but these questions are really important. What mistakes did I make? What can I learn from what's happened? How do I need to grow? What in my character needs attending or addressing? How do I go about improving? And how do I go about becoming a better human being? And then there's other questions you'll ask. So when things happen and it hasn't worked out well, these questions are really helpful. And Delroy, it's painful. Yes, of course it's painful. It's not easy, but if you're able to engage with the question, probe it through for the answer, you'll get better insights and so forth. I think I might have mentioned a friend of mine, very good friend of mine. He said, Delroy said, no matter who I dated, whether white, Caribbean or Asian, I always got the same outcome. And I think it was while he was in therapy, and he decided, as he looked back at what was happening in his life, he said, I'm going to go for somebody completely different to the norm I'd be going for. And he got some completely different results. He says, the person I'm with now, we've been with each other for 15 years, they're 16 years. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought I'd be with a person like that. But actually, that's the person I'm with. And I just love being with her, love her company, love her mind, and all the rest of it. So it's about learning from what's happened. So this, I've just made a note, this sort of analysis helps to find out what you want and what is right for you. Now, actually, if we don't do the analysis, we keep doing the same mistake. So the analysis is really, really important. So, just want a few more things I want to add to us, or just share with us. So in terms of moving forward, please, if there's anyone, if you're thinking of a question, you know me already, put it in. And in fact, it's what I really enjoy about our sessions, not so much me rambling on, but the questions that I get, the insights and so forth, really important. So one of the things about moving on is, these are a few things, there's loads of things. And obviously, listening to what I'm saying today will help you with your own kind of thinking and thoughts and develop some ideas that I've not even thought of. So practice releasing regrets. There's an excellent book called 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. I've not read it yet. It's a book on my reading list, but I might have mentioned it a few weeks ago. There's a brilliant YouTube video she's been interviewed by Dr. Ragan Chatterjee. There's 5 regrets of the dying, and one of the things is this whole thing about about living with regrets and realizing that they could have done a lot more, that there was the opportunity, but quite often what they did, they took the easy road out. So practicing releasing regrets. So how do you do that? There's a moment of realization. You're in a relationship. So there's a moment of realization. You're in this relationship, and you realize that you are dependent on the person in making you happy. That is never a good place to be in a relationship. You're with somebody for them to make you happy. No, you need to be in a relationship to enhance each other's happiness, but not to allow the other person to make you happy. Because if that is the case, you're forever dependent on people to make you happy. And you need to be happy in your own right. So when you you enter into a relationship, the person there, you enhance each other's happiness, about growing, maturing, and so forth. It's never about this person making you happy. And if the person doesn't make you happy, they've failed. One of the things that, also one of the things about practicing or releasing regrets is dwelling on what could have been. That's torturous. When we dwell on what could have been, that's painful. Dwelling on the past is no good. The relationship happened. It is what it is, or it was what it was. That's it, not what it could have been. So what I want to say is that as much as we find out, as I said earlier on, what mistakes did I make, don't dwell on your mistakes. The maturity is, what mistakes did I make? What do I need to do to correct it? That's the mature view. The immature view, or the one that's stuck, is you just keep going over in your mind, oh, I shouldn't have done this, I've done it wrong, and that just kind of messes you up completely. That's not what this is about. Forgiving yourself, that's really important. I've spoke about this in one of the sessions. Forgiving yourself really is about understanding that this is who you were 2 or 3 years ago. That's who you were, but now you're a different person. And so in a sense, you're more of a mature self now. So then this is who I was 3 years ago. I'm no longer that person. So be easy on yourself. That's the decision you made at that time, in that situation, that context. If it was a situation now, you wouldn't make that decision, but you did 2 or 3 years ago. So this whole thing around forgiving yourself, realize that's what I did then, but this is what I'm going to do now. It's really important. This is really important. Regrets rob you of positive energy. If we keep regretting things, and we go over and over and over. Some of us listening, whether in live or catch up or whatever it might be, weeks or months. I've been there as well, where you dwell on something so much and it leaves you absolutely distraught. So dwelling on the past or regret robs you of positive energy. Wrestling with pain and anger every day. Listen to this. Wrestling with pain and anger every day fills you with anxiety, loss of sleep, robs you of peace, laughter, affects your whole humanity. So if we're in this thing wrestling with pain and anger every single day, and we kind of go around in a circle, it robs us of so much, let alone of what it might be doing to our entire humanity. So remember that regret has energy and is a stress factor. Remember that. It's not just an idea and emotion, it's a stress factor. So that's really important. As I said before, learn to forgive yourself. This is by Lauren Dechen. This is what she says: work on forgiving yourself. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's something you kind of need to work on. She said, you might think you made the biggest mistake of your life. And if only you if only you didn't do it, you would not be in the pain that you're in right now. So I've made the biggest mistake of my life, and if I didn't do it, I won't be in the pain that I'm in right now. This is what she says: don't go down that road. There's nothing good down there. And how many times have we done that? I've done it. That's, you made a massive mistake, and it just occupies your thoughts and your thinking. Gosh, if I didn't make that mistake, I would not be experiencing this now. She said, don't go down that road. The minute you find yourself going down that road, catch yourself. No, don't go down that road. She says, down that road, she said, there's nothing good down there. So that's a lesson for all of us. And sometimes the way of, it's about catching yourself. Sometimes something happens, and then we have to become aware about it, of course. Something happens, and then we begin to get negative thoughts, negative emotions, and we start going down this road of ruin, and it really does kind of destroy. She said, don't go down that road. She said, there's nothing down there there's nothing good down there. Also, one of the things that I think many of us struggle with, that we can be in so we're talking about relationships, but it could be in a workplace, a situation. Don't think about any time as loss. That's a danger. If we think that we've wasted our entire life, that's a killer. That really is a killer. So try to shift your focus from what I've wasted to what I've gained. So something could have happened and you think, oh gosh, I've wasted my life completely. No. Can you shift it a bit? What have I gained? That's really important. Acknowledging the reality, but asking the question, what have I gained? That's going to be far more beneficial than what have I lost. Now, Jenny's got a question for me. I haven't got a question. Do you think that some people are unwilling to, I know where you're going. Do you think that some people are unwilling to move on due to not being comfortable with not having somewhere to? Absolutely true. Yeah. In other words, they stay in a relationship that they shouldn't be in because they have a fear. Hold that word, fear of not being in another relationship. Yes. And they may think they'll be judged as having something wrong with them. Yes, it takes courage and confidence to move on. Yeah, hey, listen, brilliant question and absolutely correct. I may have mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I met somebody a year ago. When I met him, his wife had just died. He'd been married. It was his second marriage. It was his wife's third marriage. She'd had two really violent relationships. And she met my friend, and she flourished. Obviously, she had the scars of two bruised relationships, but he weathered the storm with her. He loved her to bits, and she flourished. And she trained as a counselor, and she did a master's in counseling. And because domestic violence was such a thing for her, she did her master's on why do people stay in relationships. And Jenny, every situation, the amount of people she interviewed, it was fear of not being in another relationship. How will I manage with the children? Will I get a job? It's fear that caused people to stay in the relationship. Certainly when I've worked with women who've been in violent domestic abuse, she'll say, they've said on many occasions, Delroy, I stayed with him, there was fear. Better the devil I know than the one I don't. Again, there's this fear thing. The fear is the other person I meet might be worse than this one. At least I know with this one, I know the level of pain and fear that they can do to me. So, and you're right, it takes courage to move on. And some people don't move on because there is one, not uncomfortable. Yeah, they don't know what to move on to. But I want to say something that's really important. That question is so jam-packed. It's an excellent question. I want to say a bit about that in a moment. So yeah, I hope I've answered it in part, but in the next few minutes, oh my gosh, the next few minutes, I'm going to answer some more of it. Yes. So remember, so one of the things about remember the good, remember the bad as well as the good. Brain scientists suggest that 20% of us suffer from what they call complicated grief, a persistent longing for someone we lost with romanticized memories of the relationship. So we've lost them and we have a romanticized idea of what the relationship like. It wasn't as good as we say it was at all. That's a biological occurrence, I say. And this longing can be addictive, and it affects brain chemistry, and it causes to remain rooted. Let me just say this, Claire wants to, I was afraid that I would have nowhere to live, but in the end, I had no choice because he locked me up and starved me. Yeah, and I'm sure, Claire, there's loads of really painful stories where women, usually women, should have gone and they stayed, and things just got bad to worse. One of the things I want to say, going back to that question, Jenny, that in that terms of some people are comfortable. So let me just go back to that first part. That's really important, and we dismiss it to our peril. Do you think that some people are unwilling to move on due to not being comfortable with not having somewhere to move on to? Absolutely. And this is what I would say at this next bit. This is what you move on to. Reconnect with who you are outside the relationship. That's who you need to move on to. Not get into another relationship straight away. You need to get on, reconnect with who you are outside the relationship. The person who wrote some of this article, Laurie Deschen, she was in this position, and she said it took her 8 years before she was able to move on into another relationship because herself had been lost in this kind of relationship. And one of the dangers, of course, of being in relationship with an individual, you get subsumed or caught up in their world and you don't know who they are. So you're right. Sometimes the reason why people stay in relationships, they think they have to move on to somewhere. And I'll be saying to you, do you know what? Move on and reconnect with yourself, or connect with yourself for the first time. Jen, I hope that helps that answer the question in part. Reconnect with who you are outside the relationship. When in a relationship, it's easy to lose one's identity because you're subsumed in the whole life of the other person. Certainly if they're controlling, they're possessive, all that type of stuff. Do you remember who you were before being in that awful relationship? Do you remember? And sometimes I tell you, I've worked with, again, usually women, and they have glimpses of who they were, but sometimes you can't go. Oftentimes you can't go back to that original person, but that original person, the character, the energy, the charisma, the energy that was there, can be a catalyst into the person moving on into becoming a better person. It's not an overnight job. A lot of tears, a lot of struggles, but yeah, reconnect with who you were before the relationship, outside of the relationship. And it may be that you've moved on, you're a lot older, but sometimes I speak to people sometimes who are shy and stuff, and I ask the question, what were you like as a kid? If I saw you at age 5, 6, or 7, what would I have seen? In some cases, kids have been shy or right from where to go, but some they were energetic, they were vibrant, they were doing stuff in the public, but then something has happened along the way that's knocked the stuffing out of them, and they've just grown into a shell and become really quiet and reserved. So I'm really wanting to awaken that person was before these particular incidents happened. So reconnecting with who you were outside of the relationship is really important. Gosh, there's so much here, and I've only got a few more minutes. Yeah, so there's a quote by Howard Thurman. This whole thing, he said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that, because the world needs people who have come alive. So the relationship you're in has killed you, it's deadened you. Listen, if you find this stuff good, share it with people. Share this on YouTube or LinkedIn. Share it with individuals. Some individuals in a relationship, the relationship has killed them. Find something that brings you alive, and he says, go and do that. Howard Thurman was a great author, wrote the book called Jesus and the Disinherited. It was a book that Martin Luther King used when he was going on his travels during the civil rights. Thank you, great answer, thanks. No, yeah, connect with you and absolutely love yourself first, then you grow and gain strength to share your life, your love, and your ability to connect with someone. Absolutely. Part of the problem why women in general, even guys, end up and stay in poor relationships, they no self-love, poor self-esteem, don't think they're worthy. That's the book. They don't think they're worthy of anything, so they stay locked in this relationship, and they die in the process. And when I see them quite often is when they really are, not literally but metaphorically speaking, at death's door, but staying with them, working through the pain, the anger, and helping them to gain strength again. And also, the thing is, if they've had lots of difficult relationship with men, what can happen, because they're in therapy with a man who's non-demanding, non-threatening, all that type of stuff, they then learn over a period of time how to relate to a man in a more positive way, and they take that experience out to the big wide world, and they do a lot better. They could also work with very experienced female therapists working with a woman to really help them to regain strength and so forth. But yeah, the question you asked, Jenny, was absolutely brilliant. This whole thing about reconnect with yourself is really important. Create separation, that's really important. End your relation is one thing, and you can feel like there's many miles before, or in fact, you might find you never find love again. But actually, going back to the question that you've asked, know yourself, connect with yourself, and it might be you don't even know. Don't rush the journey. Enjoy the process of reconnecting with yourself. Maybe finding something you used to do and you stopped when you got into this relationship. The person didn't want you to do it, so you stopped. Part of you was stifled. Maybe that you reconnect with artwork, you reconnect with music, you reconnect with some dancing, you reconnect with something that brings you alive, and then go and do it. That, in fact, what I'd say this. Maybe doing that is far more important than seeing a therapist. Sometimes, listen, I'm in the business, and it's great, and I think the world of it. But sometimes, you know, if you're quite reflective and you're learning quite a lot, what you find that brings you alive can really be transformative in your life. So that's really important. So creating a separation is really good. One writer claimed, instead of wanting a specific, listen to this, instead of wanting a specific person to re-enter your life, want love, and instead of a person, want love and happiness. So you're not looking for a person. No, don't do that. Want love and happiness, whatever that may look like. There's a fallacy we have in the West that everything that we need we'll find in another one person. No, that's not true. No human being can satisfy all the needs of another human being. We need human contact. And that doesn't mean to say that you're going to be promiscuous and you be sleeping, all that type of stuff. No, there are things that we're with somebody and we can't get what's needed. We find it in other places. That doesn't mean that you're being disrespectful or you're dishonoring the person you're with. No one person is able to satisfy all the needs of an individual. Absolutely impossible. So instead of wanting a specific person to re-enter into your life, want love and happiness, whatever that may look like. Be open to meeting all types of people with renewed possibilities. So moving on means we need to be open to new possibilities, new ways of doing things, experiences that you never had before. Be open to it. The danger, of course, is that we become closed off and then our world becomes really small. Now that you're no longer in this difficult relationship, one of the things that you can do is to begin to explore life in a new way. Oh, let's have a look at what Claire says. Too many are afraid to go it alone. I thank God I wasn't in the end and find my own happiness within. If I can heal and be happy, anyone can. Yep. All our journeys are different, struggles are different, but yep, absolutely. It takes courage, as we said earlier on, and so forth. So I'm going to finish in a couple of minutes. Right, remember the benefits of moving on. Moving on after you've gone through a process of dealing with emotions through thoughts and actions. When you let go, you give yourself peace, not just people. So you find not just people, new places, new things to do, new possessions, new things. It's an opportunity for something new. I'm going to finish on this now. Embrace impermanence. Impermanence means something which lasts a limited time. So everything lasts only for a limited time. Good health, our good looks. C.S. Lewis said that a woman's looks are her diminishing returns. As she becomes older, a woman becomes less attractive. That's something a woman has to deal with. So this whole thing that something which only lasts for a limited time. So our health, our looks, everything only lasts for a time. Nothing lasts forever. Our experiences, our relationships eventually run their course. And it says, treat each day as a life unto itself. Treat each day to life unto itself. Appreciate the people you have in front of you that can help you to kind of move on from a difficult relationship. Try to gain from each moment. In fact, have a new zest for life. You've been locked away in this relationship for X amount. I think it was Carol who said last year that she's very happy with her chihuahua and maybe one of the two, maybe a cup of tea, and she's really, really happy with that. So be open to new experiences, do new things, go to places, really important. And this is it. And this is the thing. Back from the question from Jenny and from Claire, maybe other people are thinking, once we've left a difficult relationship, what we have in front of us is the unknown. We can either treat the unknown as a curse or an adventure. And it's up to us how and what we choose. The unknown we can see as a curse and we're frightened of it. But the unknown can be seen as an adventure, something new, something great, something to explore, something that you've not done before. This is the opportunity. So the person who contacted me a little while ago, I'm not too sure if you're listening, but listen, what's happened has been painful. Don't dodge the process. Go through the process. It may take a few months, it may take a year, it may take 18 months, 2 years. Go through the process. Some of the things that I've done, if it means you need to see a therapist, do that. Or get a journal, do that, and really explore all those emotions. Some of the questions that I've posed, do that, explore as much as you can, but be open to new things. And the future for all of us, and certainly if you're listening and you're somebody's shared this with you, and moving on from a difficult relationship, what you have in front of you is the unknown. You either treat it as a curse or an adventure. And I would encourage you, with how many adventures start, there's excitement, there's exhilaration, there's anxiety, there's fear, there's nervousness. See the unknown as an adventure. So that's it. That's the moving on from a difficult relationship. Listen, we've just spent half an hour, well, maybe an hour with last week's session, an hour. It's going to take a lot longer than that, but go through the process. And again, as I said, if you know individuals who've ended a relationship and it's been really, really difficult, share this with them. Yeah, and the unknown, because that's ultimately that's what it is. Jenny said earlier on about fear, about courage. You do need courage to move on, you do, but also as well, as I said right at the end, you see the unknown either as a curse or an adventure, and I'd really encourage you to see it as an adventure. And with some adventures, the bit, sometimes you fall over a bit, scrape your knees, scrape your fingers, scrape your elbows, get up again, push yourself down, and keep going, and just enjoy what's ahead of you. Listen, thank you very much indeed for watching. If you're watching live, thank you. Those of you who are watching, catch on later on. Thank you very much indeed. If it's spoken to you, if it resonated with you, send me a message, DM me. Really great. Yeah, absolutely. It does apply to friends. Yeah, some friends we need to cut away from. Those friends are not good. They're not good at all. And we know that, but we stay in it for loads of reasons. And regardless of who we are, we stay in things for lots of different reasons. We stay with friendships, we stay in workplaces, and for a load of reasons. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the evening, and have some courage, and see the unknown as an adventure, not a curse. Wish you well. Enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of your week. See you next week for more information, more teachings, more learnings, and share with your friends. All right, take care. Wish you well. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.